Hello everyone, this is Bradley. Today this is a tutorial about creating this flow field with obstacle avoidance animation, which was originally taught by Entagma using Houdini. I'm basically trying to achieve the same effect using Blender geometrynodes, which contains some function just became available in version 5.0. The functions I'm going to use are part of a very new and distinctive system, and I'm still testing them as we go. So for now, I won't go too deep into background knowledge. Some parts may look a bit convoluted, and that's because they are. In the future, there will likely be a more general and beginner-friendly video explaining the backgrounds in more details. In this tutorial, we will just follow Entagma's concepts to recreate the animation. It will be interesting if you have seen Entagma's Houdini tutorial, since you can compare how we approach the same concepts differently due to the software and the tool differences. So here we're in Blender. Let's go to the node editor and start with a plane, adding a geometry node tree, replacing the group input to a procedural mesh grid. Let's increasing its size and add lots of subdivisions. We need a target, so let's add a UV sphere. I will scale it down and put it in the corner of our plane. First, we need a fold from this UV sphere to generate a gradient. So let's add a mesh fold, which I just explained yesterday. You see the fold is not matching the location of our sphere because we need to turn on this relative mode. Now you will see the fold only covers a very small area around the sphere. We need to blur the attributes, and we increase its magnitude by increasing the iteration. So you can see the gradient diffuse more broadly. It's important to notice there is a weight factor in this blur node. If you decrease it, the smoothing effect decreases until it disappears. We're going to use this concept. Next, we need to add some blockers to interrupt this gradient. I will use a cube and a cylinder just like in Entagma's tutorial. For convenience, I will put them into a collection called a blocker and pull that collection into the node tree. Let's also set it to relative. Outputting collection to mesh fold will raise warning about instances because we need to realize instances to access their data. Now we have mesh fold to visualize the gradients, and we can turn off the blocker for the moment. The gradient currently goes from 0 to 1. We will remap and reverse the gradient from 1 to 0, then output this value to the weight factor. You will see that the blocked areas now stop the fold diffusion, forming a very interesting contour of Great Wall. Now that we have the gradients, before 5.0, this is where I usually stopped, because Blender lacked a measure function like in Houdini. Of course, you could build your own, but my algorithm wasn't reliable. It worked like crap. In 5.0, we finally have a kind of measure function in the volume grid called the grid gradient. Basically, you input a volume gradient, and it calculates a vector that tells you which direction to move forward. We will make use of this algorithm provided by Blender Foundation. So we will need to use the grid system. This is kind of a convoluted workaround due to technical limitations, but at the end it works. So let's construct a volume grid. We will use mesh to density grid. You can see it creates a volume fork. So this is what a grid actually means in this case. Now we need to copy and paste our evaluation from mesh to this grid. This is done with a node called field to grid. However, as soon as you feed in the value, everything disappears. There are two reasons. One reason is due to these blur attributes. Let's disable it. You should be able to see a tiny fog around our UV sphere. Therefore, this is the second reason. The value is just too small, so let's take a mass multiply for a high enough value. Now you can see the volume more clearly, and if we enable it again, it still disappears because of this blur attribute. This blur attribute is not replaceable for the animation, so we need to pick a workaround to resolve the issue. Fortunately, we can use the sample nearest surface node. We sample our initial mesh and plug in our blurred attribute, so we make sure this value is stored on the mesh for future processing. But if you look at the value we sampled, you see it forms a rim around the UV sphere, which looks different from the original gradient. This is the second limitation to this blur attribute, and it requires us to capture attribute to resolve it. Now we have recovered the gradient, and we can feed it to field to gradient node. We see a sparse of volume that has a gradient extending downwards. You can increase the multiplier to make it more obvious. As we have the gradient, we can use grid gradients to calculate the vector field now. You can visualize these vector gradients, but it's like red and green. It's difficult to interpret directly. So let's use another method. We will instance cones on our mesh using instance on points. And let's add a value precision to scale down these cones. Right now, these cones are facing upwards. I want them to align their rotation to the gradient we made. However, connecting them will throw an error saying that the grid is not supported. There's another one saying that input expecting field or single value. That's because our gradient is essentially a volume. And just like previously we need to convert the field to volume, now we need to convert volume back to values on our mesh. Here we need to use the sample grid node, which is evaluating on the distance. Now you will see the errors are gone. We should have cones correctly aligned to the gradient. It may be difficult to see, but if you look carefully enough, you may see a trend how these cones are rotating with their tips. Before we move on, we can discuss some aspects of inaccuracy. You can actually see a clear boundary that some cones are not aligning to the direction they should. This is mostly because of parameters. One aspect of it is a difference between mesh and volume. If you look at the mesh we have, the boundary extending up to here. But if you look at the volume, let's increase the density, you can see it's a bit farther away. The difference can cause inaccuracy, and to improve it, you can decrease the voxel size. Here, it's important to be precautious about the performance time, because sometimes it can be really slow. The second aspect is this blur attribute. Sometimes it's not extending far enough to influence the others. Generally, you can play with these parameters and even remove this outermost layer of inaccuracy. Let's save this node tree as a study reference and start with a copy node tree for the next part. Basically, we want these cones to move along the gradient. Let's add a set position node to our mesh and use the sampled gradients from grid for offset. You can see they are moved very far away because our vector gradients are being multiplied too much. We can normalize them to make their magnitude to 1 and add another mass scale to give it a small enough value. Right now, we are only offsetting their position once, but we want continuous movement, so we will loop it over time using a simulation zone. A simulation zone loops a function over time. Here we are looping the set position operation, so we swap the inputs and the output linkage and replace it with the linkage related with set position. Now, if we play the animation, you can see how the cones are moving along the gradient, which is okay. There are several improvements I would like to do. One is that they are moving too fast. As velocity, they need even smaller value. Sometimes we will use data time, and here I will use an additional mass multiplier to scale it down further, like half. Now, increase the maximum time and play the animation again. The second improvement I am going to do is just to reduce the blur a bit to keep the original gradient more intact. As a result, we have an animation following the original desired gradient. Next, we can add a tracer from the moving points on mesh. I find we have too many points, making it difficult to visualize. But it's okay, we can add a bevel curve to turn on decimal shift to make it thin enough. For tracer, we can turn on resample to make them a little faster, especially if they move too slow. And you can turn on the trim, therefore as the tracer is progressing, it will also trim itself to be shorter. Due to the time constraint, I'm not going to discuss this kind of a center area or this kind of boundary. Instead, I want to discuss a little bit more about the repulsion from the path. It's very important to see the importance of this reverse function in the weight of our blur attribute. And you can add some other objects or math. For example, edge boundary or boundary selection. These two are offering the same function. The only difference is one is provided by Blender from 5.0. The other is made by me many years ago. Here we will just use the one provided by Blender. And you see these points are repulsed from the edges. And without this mask, you can see these points will just follow horizontally. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll probably see you next time. Bye-bye.